I love you.
You look like you're in pain.
Yeah, I had like a burp stuck.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome back, Couch Potatoes, one and all, to what I hope is going to be a more used segment of the show throughout 2021. Should you stay or should you go?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. There are no original stories anymore. That is the theme of today's Stay or Go.
Oh.
Yeah, technically, or Stay Go, if you want. We can call it that.
Yeah. So you could go watch one of these movies in theater, or you could buy into HBO and watch it from home.
For the next 25 days. It's only gonna be on HBO Go for a month. Sorry, I say 25 days. By the time this comes out, it's like 2 weeks. So get out there now, guys. If you want,
get out there. Yeah, if you've missed, if we're talking Wonder Woman, 1984.
Yeah, Wonder Woman's on HBO. Yeah.
And yeah, you should always be able to catch the OG Wonder Woman on HBO. I don't think they're gonna take that down anytime soon.
No.
But yeah, the sequel, you got some limited time to catch it.
That reminds me, you mentioned the movie's title, Wonder Woman 1984.
Uh-huh.
Remind me later to talk about that, because that's one of the few things that I'm mad about that I did not write down in my notes, and I have no more space in my notebook to take notes on Wonder Woman. So please remind me to complain about that later.
That's some foreshadowing, I think, for Greenie's thoughts.
Yeah, see, the theme again of today's episode is there are no original stories. But I'm going to argue that of the two movies we watched, which are again Wonder Woman 1984 and Pixar's Soul.
Yep.
Of the two movies we watched, one of them just completely gave itself over to old stories and didn't do anything new and was very boring and bland and completely underwhelming. While the other one took elements of old stories that felt very familiar and didn't really rehash them too well, but still delivered a buttload of emotion into it.
Yeah.
And still built new characters and still told a great new story.
Yeah.
Out of the ruins of old stories.
Well, that's some foreshadowing on his thoughts of Soul.
I'm very mad, people.
So should we go /stay for Wonder Woman? Let's discuss. So which one of these movies you want to synopsize?
I feel like if I synopsize Wonder Woman, I'm going to be pulled off into tangents of bitching constantly.
Sure.
So you might be best to summarize that one, and then I'll fill in when I get there.
I just realized something though. I'm the Faceless Leone.
Yeah, I'm the Green Traveler of Gorsh with an X.
Of Gorsh. This is a podcast about movies and TV, particularly new movies today, which is exciting.
Yeah, this is technically, it's coming out in 2021, but this is the last movies of 2020 that we're gonna see and review.
Wow.
In this year, that is, because we're still recording it in 2020, but it'll be released in 2021.
Yeah, we only got a few more days though. We're cutting it pretty close.
Yeah, I gotta say, neither of them knocked off my best or worst film, so those still remain solidified.
I can't remember what you said was the worst.
Doolittle.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's probably pretty fair. Yeah, I didn't watch that one, but I heard really bad reviews, and of course your review.
Well, I think we'll do it someday, because I definitely want to rewatch it just so I can bitch about it.
Okay.
Because it's like the last time I got to write about it, and there is a catharsis to writing out your complaints, but voicing them and having other people possibly listen to them is much more entertaining.
Should we compare it to the Eddie Murphy movie and do like a remake segment?
That'd be fun. Yeah, that could be our in a way a sequel smash. That's the blanket title for those stories, right?
Okay, sure. I would argue remakes are quite a bit different, but we got a lot of segment titles, so
yeah. That's why I'm saying it's just like under that umbrella segment, it would be fine. Okay. I think.
So, Wonder Woman,
talking
1984. 1984 is a year of style and flair. And Diana Prince, she is working in a museum, the same job I would hope a different museum by the time the Justice League movie came around, because that's a good way to get found out right there.
Knowing the DCEU, they did not put thought into it.
They did not put thought into that. No. Okay, so anyhow, she's like some kind of curator, scientist, archaeologist, anthropologist, whatever. At this museum.
Millionaire, billionaire, philanthropist.
Yeah. She can do whatever she wants. She has time on her hands.
She's just Bruce Wayne of Themyscira.
Yeah, that's right. She is working with Barbara Minerva. She's really just met Barbara, and Barbara immediately takes a liking to her and wants to be like her, which comes into play when they find this artifact that grants wishes. And this guy named Maxwell Lord wants to get a hold of it.
He's an oil baron.
At least he wants to be.
Well, he is. He technically is.
Yeah, he's just
a failed one.
He's not doing good. Yeah, he's not doing good. He gets a hold of it, and chaos ensues, including spoilers. Not so much spoilers because it was in the trailer, which I think is the most bogus thing. Chris Pine comes back to life. Steve Trevor.
Yeah, because if your big complaint of Wonder Woman, the first movie, because that's such a wonderful movie that there's really hard, it's kind of hard to complain about it, because even with all of its little nitpicky issues, it's an entertaining and very heartfelt or emotionally warming movie.
It's powerful, I think, in some places.
Yeah. And if your main issue of that movie, because it was hard to find issues, was that you have this powerful female superhero for the first time on screen, and she spends the whole time pining after a pilot. If that's your big issue, they double down on that super fucking hard in this movie.
That is very, very true. See, though, when I watched the original Wonder Woman, obviously there is some chemistry, and there's definitely something between her and Trevor. But for me, it never really gets solidified until that last moment. And so for me, it was never a huge part of her character for that movie.
Yeah,
that's at least how I watched it.
Yeah, that's why it's not an issue for me, because I didn't mind. I thought it felt like a natural relationship that was built on curiosity and respect. Like
and the brotherhood of battle too. Like, they sell some shit together and completely respect each other, like you said.
Yeah, and it's the first one is a well-told story. Yeah. And I walked away like completely willing to give any kind of story to Patty Jenkins, because she did an amazing job as a director.
Oh yeah, I still want to see more from her directing.
Yeah. I mean, she's doing that Star Wars film. I sent you the trailer of it, of the fighter. It's the fighter. I can't remember what it's called. It's not Rogue One, but it's I think it says Rogue something. But anyways, she's doing a fighter pilot Star Wars film.
That's cool.
And she says it's gonna be like the best fighter pilot movie ever made, and I'm just like, oh, that's fucking ballsy. Like, I love it.
That is pretty ballsy.
I'm still really excited for what she has to deliver on that. That's gonna be really awesome. And I am hoping severely that this film was just a fluke, or that it was severely affected by producers butting in.
Yeah, I would say that there probably was some producers butting in, but I would say that the performances that the actors gave and the scenes, I don't think that the movie was badly directed. I think that the script wasn't great. And the ending part, which we'll talk about with all the CGI, that wasn't great either. But
yeah, that's where I'm getting at with the directing. Is you're right, the performances are good, and the script that was delivered, which was also written by Patty Jenkins, but I feel like it was more influenced by Jeff Johns, the comic book writer, who I do love his comic books. We'll talk about that, but I feel like the bad part here in regards to directing was her handling of action scenes. Because in the first one, she has those awesome war fight scenes where, Wonder Woman's standing up with the shield and she's getting pelted with bullets.
Fucking Amazon scene on the beach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's so good. And then in this one, it opens up with young Diana the intro scene is young Diana entering into a contest where she's going up against other Amazonians, and it's like a contest
Right.
to, strength of will and all that kind of stuff, and it looks horrible.
I think what that scene really came down to for the horrible for me was like, where did the Amazons all of a sudden get spandex? They had like this cool fucking armor that seemed like, something that someone would develop who was weapon and armor kind of advanced.
Mm-hmm.
But then in this movie they're wearing these like leotards kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to the dress, and that's more of just a sexist thing for me. It's just because like when people were complaining about Justice League and how like they minimized the Amazonian armor from what it was in Wonder Woman to be like the very more skin revealing armor in Justice League, I literally didn't notice it when I watched it, and then when I walked away and heard that was a complaint, I was like, oh, So
yeah, but then we had the actors come out about that one though.
If
I'm not mistaken, saying that it was a lot easier to move.
Yeah, like to be fair, there are arguments on both sides, but what I'm saying is like, from my point of view as a male, I sadly don't pay enough attention to costume design as I would like to. But that scene, what makes that scene really horrible for me is every time that they show an action scene of young Diana, who again is like probably, what would you say, like 4 feet tall, like, young girl.
Yeah, she is small. She seemed just as small as the first movie to me.
There's no, but I mean, yeah, no issue with that, but it's just like every time they do an action scene and they try to show her doing something, you can clearly tell that the stunt double looks much taller than a child.
I see.
Every time. I'm like, why are you doing this? I just, every time, I could not stand it. I was so irritated. I'm just like, they show her jumping off a horse. I'm like, that is like a 5 foot tall man. Like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe maybe it's just, I was viewing it from the smaller screen. So maybe, I just, maybe I was disillusioned, but it did not feel like a little girl was performing any of the stunts that were being shown.
Hello, all. This is the Green Traveler from the future, stepping in to say that Lily Asbell, the young actress who played young Diana, did all of her own stunts during that introduction scene, and I, old-ass white male that I am completely talking out of my ass. Feel free to laugh at me in the comments. Thank you. Have a good day. I'm returning you back to my rant. Bye.
One thing this movie is trying to do is pull from the old Superman films, oh man, I can't remember his name now. Christopher Reeves. The Christopher Reeves Superman films, because it has that kind of attitude, that emotion, the atmosphere that they're trying to, that kind of cheesy, campy little feel. And you see that in other DC films like Shazam and a little bit in Aquaman. Like, they're trying to find their style still.
Right.
And I'm still of the firm opinion that they need to just destroy the whole foundation and start over. They build it on sand, and they need to.
But keep Gal Gadot.
Yeah, keep some of the cast you've made. I like some of the,
and Patty.
I like the
keep Patty
choice.
Too. I think she has more good to come. I do agree that this isn't as good of a movie as the first, but I don't think it was incompetent by any means.
But oh man, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of writing structural incompetence. Like,
I'll give you that.
I'm struggling on where to start with my criticisms, because it's just going to be a stream of consciousness, just me constantly bitching, and you're just going to have to interrupt me. I'm sorry.
Hey, we're gonna have episodes like that. So I'm sure that there'll be a movie. Well, I mean, even this is kind of spoilers for an opinion that I have later in this series. When we did Goldfinger, I kind of went off on that movie. Mm-hmm. So that's just gonna happen. That's gonna be part of our style.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to keep me from doing it for like a whole hour, because I probably could. It's been what is today, the 28th, so it's been 3 days since we've watched it, or 4 days. Mm-hmm. And I haven't gotten the chance to just bitch about this movie yet, and so I could
You still got a bunch of steam under the lid. Okay.
I'm boiling, man. I'm boiling. Like, honestly, I'm almost willing to just say throw up the spoiler wall, but I think there's stuff we can talk about still outside
sure.
of it.
We'll talk about the lead characters first?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
All right.
So, again, everybody, there's Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, as you said, as Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman. Amazing. They still do a great job.
Yeah.
The action scenes, neither of them really pull off action too well. The physics of Wonder Woman's lasso are god awful.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the leap that they took from what the lasso could do in the first movie to this movie.
Yeah. It was
because
ridiculous.
She's just like Tarzan swinging everywhere with it, and she does a lot more fighting with it, but she doesn't have a sword in this movie either. So
no,
that could be a reason why it's like, okay, so she doesn't have that cool sword anymore, and I'm like, but she's in antiquities. She's in antiquities. I think she could find
right.
one.
she's like floating around too, like whenever she'll lasso somebody and then she'll just like float and hover down, and like the facial expressions she's doing just look more like, I gotta make sure that the wire doesn't pull my hair by twisting my body to the left or the right. It's like she's very just like unemotional whenever she's using the lasso, and like every action scene just fell off because it just didn't feel like the actors were knowing what they were supposed to be doing in certain areas.
Right.
And it's just, and every time with the lasso, whenever she slung anybody anywhere, it just looked bad. I was just, it made me so mad. I was just, this is like, what the physics are? You fling somebody, what that looks like. This movie's just like, whew, and then they hover, and then they kind of like gently fall, and they land on the ground, and then they slide 10 feet. And I'm like, no, why wouldn't they get flown into the wall at like 50 miles an hour? That thing's a magical weapon of the gods.
Oh, man.
Like
that might, I don't know, that might be I don't know, I haven't done enough movie stuff to know like the roles that people take on a movie production, but on stage there's a technical director who directs all of the physical effects and stuff like that. Like if people are on wires, they're planning that out, making sure it's safe and all that kind of thing. That could be on that person's role. Like maybe they are just trying to do some effect stuff that they knew would work, and I don't know.
And that's fine, but when you see the final product, and again on the small screen, maybe on the big screen, it looks much better. Most directors think of the big screen when they are directing, so it's very possible that it looks much better blown up on in the theaters. But on the small screen, I still like those action scenes. They all just fell off, and it's just like whenever she there's a good car chase scene. There was one good action scene where she and Steve Trevor are on the road chasing down some vehicles. That was really fun. The only problems with that scene was there's a moment where she gets out and runs next to the vehicle, and it is so obviously green screen behind them. And I'm just like, come on, you had this movie was delayed for 6 months because of the virus. You had 6 months to send it back to editors and get it CGI'd to perfection, to just make it look better than the Lord of the Rings. Like you had there's no excuse for bad CGI when you have a delay of this long. Like just pour a couple extra $100,000 into it and get it looking beautiful.
Yeah, it could have been a budget issue. I mean they're definitely
Warner Brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. But I mean, like, hey though, with times like these, big companies, they really roll back. They're like, okay, we gotta make sure that we make it through this depression, which I mean, is what's going on.
You're right. I mean, I get it. That is true. I just feel like they still could have done something more to make it look better.
If anybody could have, you're right.
And I guess the next two big characters, the only two big characters left to talk about are the villains. Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian, as Maxwell Lord.
Yeah, which I did not know going ahead that he was going to be in this. And I was like,
yeah, I remembered watching the trailer and being like, oh, yeah, cool, that's going to be awesome. And then I completely forgot that Maxwell Lord was in this movie. Like, I completely forgot it. And then watching it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. And then I got scared. I was like, oh, no.
yeah.
He's not bad. It's just...
I like his character. I did not know how I felt about it at first when they were introducing
he's very
character.
he's very campy. Like, he definitely is the 80s Superman kind of villain.
Yeah, but he also is like an 80s salesman stockbroker kind of personality.
Yeah.
Like he does do it really well. And after a while when you get to like, I feel like the more monstrous he becomes, the more human he becomes as well. At least he becomes less fake. His front falls.
Yeah.
And I just thought that full ride Pedro Pascal did a pretty good job with this character. I'm not 100% sure that I like the character.
Yeah. I'm glad that worked for you, because I did not get any of that going in, because the ending felt like a huge 360 that came out of left field. That we won't talk spoilers yet, but there's stuff with Maxwell Lord's character near the end where he makes a decision, and that decision felt completely off from the character that I had watched be developed. Right. So like it just felt like they were like, we have no way of ending this quick, huge character switch. That
it did seem like a quick end, and maybe that was some kind of producer stepping in and
because I don't like the ending they had. We'll talk that behind the wall.
It did kind of remind me of the Suicide Squad ending.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just kind of happened.
Yeah, just flashy and silly.
Yeah.
Before we talk Cheetah, that's the last character we'll talk about, and then I think we might be able to put up the wall. I'll have to look at my notes. But let's quickly talk the time period, because it is a period movie. Wonder Woman 1984. It's in the title. 1984. You're going to choose a year in the 80s. You want to make an 80s movie, that's fine. You're going to choose a year. You choose 1984, which is a George Orwell novel.
Yeah. I was thinking some Big Brother stuff was going to happen too.
Yeah. Yeah, you choose that year, you make it Orwellian. You do not make it Orwellian, you piss a lot of people off, because I was expecting Wonder Woman to be going up against government agencies.
Right.
You know, I was expecting Big Brother stuff, especially in the year we've had. Nothing.
They could even have done Brother Blood, and I would have been happy with that. Like, just make it a reference.
Yeah. Anything. And it pisses me off. Like, why even bother with the year? What's the point?
And you could have, maybe there was a working title that was Wonder Woman the 80s, and somebody was I think it should be a specific year, and they just they were stupid. No,
what I felt happened was that the working title was Wonder Woman 84, and they just accidentally let that slip to the public as Wonder Woman 84, and people were like, oh, that's awesome. It's like, that's a good name for a sequel.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, fuck, we're stuck with it. All right, let's go with it. And then they just...
could be.
That's what I think happened. I have no idea.
A fumble.
But that's one of, like, the inconsistencies is, those missed opportunities. You name your movie that. You could have made it Orwellian. The entire intro sequence is about Wonder Woman cheats to try to win that contest she's in, and Robin Wright, who I can't remember her character's name, pulls her aside before she can win the competition. Thank you. And no offense to Robin Wright, she is a great actress or actor. Yeah. I love her. She looked like she was just constipated throughout her 5 minutes on the screen. Like, she did not look like she was at all excited to be acting, because they don't do anything with Themyscira. It's the intro scene, it's the intro sequence, and then they're just done with it, and that kind of irritates me too.
Maybe she was irritated. Maybe she was hoping for a bigger role upon return.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I get it. It's lost. She can't find it. Like, I get it. But still, you could have done something behind the scenes. It could have been a subplot that, somehow they help her solve the final issue, and isolation. But like another inconsistency that, again, I'm just going to be stream of consciousnessing this, but this one's not a spoiler, so I want to put it up front. Throughout this movie, people are wearing heavy clothes. They're in jackets. They're, Cheetah, when you see her, she's wearing like a lot of fur a lot sometimes. There's a scene with a homeless person at the beginning who's breathing and his breath is in clouds, and Kristen Wiig comes up and gives him some food, and she says, stay warm tonight, and she walks away. And 30 minutes later, you find out it's July the 4th in Washington, D.C., where temperatures are typically 70 degrees or more. So it's just these stupid little inconsistencies that it's just like, if you're not paying attention to it, you don't care. But if you are like me, you're like, wait, how is it July the 4th? Everybody's cold. Everybody's breathing fog. That person's wearing a jacket. That homeless guy is like underneath a huge cotton blanket, and she told him to stay warm that night, and everybody's crowding around oil barrels.
Right.
Like
it is in DC, the whole movie, or I just thought just parts.
I think so.
Of it were. The whole movie were.
I think so. But that's another problem.
Yeah, that's pretty inconsistent.
Well, it's like I read Patty Jenkins said this, it was like she wanted to make it she wanted to bring DC to life or whatever. It was a Washington Post or something, stupid article. But it's a lot of the film is set in DC, if not most of it, but there are good portions in it. And the locations never felt solid for me. I never knew where things were taking place.
I thought most of it was either California or Florida. Really.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I've only been to one space center in my life, but when they went to the space center, I was like, wait, are they in Florida?
Yeah.
But maybe there is one in DC that I don't know.
I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I had that one of my complaints was that Steve Trevor calls them jets when he first sees them. When he sees a modern day airplane, he calls it, oh, look at that jet. And I'm like, you're from World War I. There were no fucking jets. But you just reminded me, they went to the space center. He most likely heard that word in there. So makes sense.
That's fair.
So I will hold that complaint that is resolved. And I'm sure a lot of my complaints are easily resolved by looking into it and finding out that I'm just talking out my ass. Like the stunt doubles at the beginning. Stunt doubles at the beginning could have been, it could have been a young girl, but it didn't feel like it.
I don't know. I did not pick that one up, that particular one. So. And
now that I just talked about, this is going to be like an hour-long review of just Wonder Woman. I'm so sorry. Now that I talked about Steve Trevor's inconsistencies, there's a fun, and I say fun sarcastically, there's a fun little moment where, Steve Trevor and Diana are walking around Washington, D.C., and Trevor's remarking to all the new wonders of the world, and he's just like, oh, this is so cool. He's like, they get on an escalator. Oh, escalators are so cool. Well, escalators were invented in 1892 and were in use during World War I. And then
But maybe they just look better. Maybe they look better, and the mall impressed him.
That's true. Maybe it was the sight of the thing, but it very much looked like he was like, oh, it's moving, and I'm not supposed to, I don't have to step. What is this? And it's like, those were in use. And another area that he was really astounded by was the subway, which in London specifically, subways were an 1863 invention, and he was in London during the first movie.
Yeah.
And another fun surprise.
That one was weird.
Yeah, and we talked this a little bit before we started reviewing, but another surprise of his was fireworks. Him and Diana are up in a jet, and they're flying, and they see a bunch of fireworks because it's 4th of July, and he gets us down. He's like, "What is that?" And she's like, "Oh, it's fireworks." And he's just like, he goes and flies over them. Fireworks are around since 600 AD, guys.
Yeah, I didn't think he was like surprised at the fact that there was fireworks. I did not catch that line of her saying it's fireworks.
It might not have happened, honestly.
Yeah.
It just I do remember him being like, "What is that?" or something along those lines, where he was like dumbfounded by it. And I'm just like, you've been in wars, you know what this fucking looks like.
Yeah. Like that was one thing, like as we were watching that scene, me and my wife, I said, he's a World War One vet. Don't you think this would be a little traumatic for him?
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
he died. He literally died in an explosion.
Yeah.
And his first thought is, I'm gonna take this jet and fly it into these fireworks, which are exploding all around me.
Yeah.
No trauma whatsoever. He's perfectly okay with it.
And he perfectly avoids all the explosions too. He doesn't get hit by any of these missiles.
No. And plus, again, just a reminder: World War One vet. He died in World War One times, flying a modern day jet like it's no fucking problem.
Yeah.
I don't know airplanes. I will put that up front, but I highly doubt that 1920s planes are similar to today's planes. I'm sure there are similarities, but I'm sure there's got to be a buttload of differences that would make it almost nearly impossible to fly.
Right. From a steering standpoint, I don't know, or at least the equipment that they have inside the cockpit, I don't know how much that has changed. But with the plane itself and how it physically works, like most of those planes that he was flying were like propelled from the front, and this is like super pushed from the back. Right. I'm sure it's a completely different feel. I'm sure.
And when they fly through the fireworks, he's able to like slow it down to like be as slow as possible to fly through, which I know they're just trying to make a beautiful, nice little fun scene.
Yeah. But I would say it was pretty.
It came across as ridiculous because it's like, no, you're in a jet. You would not have this many seconds to admire fireworks going off around you.
Right.
You would be in and out within 2 or 3 seconds.
So, I think
Kristen Wiig is Cheetah.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Sorry.
I think we went to start to talk about Barbara, but we did not.
Here's the evolution of her character.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can't wear heels. I can wear heels. I am an apex predator.
yeah, kind of.
That was
all right.
That was pretty much all they tried to give her.
That was, but I think she did a good amount with at least in the first and second act. I thought she did pretty well. I the transition really worked for Kristen Wiig, and I kind of got I like other things that she has done, like her part in it though.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of some of the recent comedy movies, to be perfectly honest.
Ghostbusters,
like Ghostbusters, or wasn't a big fan of Bridesmaid, but I could tell that she had something. And you know, she's from
she is
SNL too, so I just kind of figured all her movies were going to be comedies like that. So I'm very happy that she's getting out of and doing something else for certain.
Yeah, she definitely does great.
Yeah. She went okay. For one thing, the way she dressed when you first meet her, and she keeps her hair, she looked like a picture of my sister. My sister is a decade older than me, and it really looked like my sister when she was quite a bit younger than Minerva, but it was weird for me. And then she wishes, the plot of her story is she wishes to be like Diana. I think that she then transitioned into this different person that was kind of a reflection of that first person pretty well.
She lost her humanity basically and started becoming more like a god. And I do like her transition. That was one of the better parts of this film, was watching Minerva transition and how it affected Diana. And I really wish that they had focused on that. We'll talk that behind the spoiler walls, because there are things I think that, I think this is a first draft film. I'm sure in reality, I'm sure it was like, the third or fourth draft. I'm sure it went through much more process than that. But it felt like a first draft film. It felt like there was so many more steps to go to make this a blockbuster worthy of Wonder Woman. Right. And, I mean, in all honesty, it felt more like a blockbuster worthy of Hawkman, who I do love, but this felt like more of a Hawkman styled story. But what was I saying?
Uh,
Hold on,
I was listening.
Crap.
You shit.
This shit is so bad. This is what happens when you go stream of consciousness, is like I just forget where I go off on a tangent, and I'm like, crap, I can't remember where I was going. But what Minerva felt like to me was she felt like a Spider-Man 3 villain. It's like there's so much potential there. There's a great story there. We're not going to give it the due focus because that's not the story we want to focus on.
Yeah. Sandman would have been cool.
Yeah. Or just Venom by himself.
Yeah, Jesus. There's a lot of story there. A lot of story.
Yeah. And now Sony has Sandman, and I'm not too fond of what they did. But people seem to like Tom Hardy, and we'll talk that some other day, I'm sure.
You're talking Venom?
Yeah, before I lose my focus again. But I do like Minerva, and I do like that transition that they have with her, as you said. So it's just sad to see what comes of it in the third act, which, again, Kristen Wiig's doing fine. There's nothing Kristen Wiig does wrong. There's nothing any of the actors do wrong. Everybody puts in a good performance. It just fell apart for me, and we'll talk why behind a spoiler wall, I'm sure. I don't think there's anything else outside of the spoiler wall that I wanted to focus on.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to move on.
All right, let's put up that wall.
Well, hi diddly ho there, spoiler avoider. Go to hour 1, minute 6, and you'll be happy.
What do we want to talk about first?
With spoilers up, I kind of, since we already talked about it a little bit, I kind of want to go back to the jet. Because one thing I liked about the jet is that they never, at least I've never heard the story behind the invisible jet that in the comic books. So I've never seen that interpreted. So I kind of liked that she used her god power to make it invisible. That was the one thing from that scene that I was like, okay, that was cool. And the effect of seeing like the blurred, like it's a pretty simple effect, I would imagine, but the blur, the fireworks through the blur, that was kind of cool. And but other than that, you're right, that scene was kind of silly.
I think it would have been funnier if the interior also went invisible. So
that and then he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, that would have been great. And like I also love, now that you bring that up, that when he's like, "What are you like? Have you ever done this before?" And she's like, "I did it to a coffee cup once, but I lost it." And I'm just like, they're not gonna find this jet again. They're gonna sit down in Cairo, and then they're not gonna have any. Also, how did they have enough fuel to get from there to Cairo? Never mind.
I don't know. Yeah, and also but imagining trying to fuel the jet.
Right.
Try.
Oh man, it's like it just brings up all the silliness of the invisible jet. Like where I'm at in the comics, I don't read a lot of Wonder Woman. That's one of them that I'm going back on and reading now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to find the famous author runs back in the old days. But from what I've read, the invisible jet hasn't really come into play in any of the stories I've read because it's a ridiculous idea. As you said, how do you fuel it? It's a pain in the ass. How do you fly it? It's a pain in the ass. It's just, you're going to lose it. It makes no sense.
Whenever she's running low on fuel, she just needs Superman to come by.
Right. But she doesn't.
Oh, wait, he can't see through magic, though, can he?
Oh, that's true. But there's also, that's another thing, is she doesn't need the jet by the end of this movie, because even though we've introduced it, she can fly now. And that scene was really horrible. So this movie takes a lot from other sequels. Superman 2, he renounces his powers and tries to be Clark Kent like a human, and General Zod comes in and fucks that all up, and he has to be Superman again. Spider-Man 2, he's having troubles with self-doubt, so he loses his powers. But then as he gets them back, he has a heroic train scene, or the amazing action scene on the train with Doc Ock.
That's a good scene.
Yeah, when he gets his powers and his confidence back, and he goes for it. Here we are, Wonder Woman 1984. She loses her powers because she made a wish to get her boyfriend back. Ah, how lovely. We double down on that so hard.
But the thing is, like, it's not like it was a conscious thing that she did.
No.
That kind of redeems it a little bit for me.
That is true. It was more of just a whimsical, just like, she's kind of just like, oh, I wish I had Steve. Once she renounces the wish, once she gets rid of it, she gets her powers back again. And thanks to, words that Steve had said earlier in the film, she learns how to fly or something. It looks bad. It was, I don't understand what they were trying to do. The scene was supposed to be emotional and heartfelt and like very epic, and like she's supposed to like get this new power and like ascend, and it just falls flat. I don't know what happened. Like the whole scene, I'm just like, this is cheesy and corny and just feels wrong.
Yeah, because she was flying at the end of the last movie. So,
well, she was jumping real far.
Yeah, but like when she, okay, so we're behind a spoilers wall. So when she kills Ares in that scene, she is floating in the air. She's flying, and then she obviously, which I kind of wanted to bring up when you're talking about the whip, the lasso, that is, because she glides down, and I'm like, I almost said because she can fly, and then I was like, yeah, but she learns how to fly in this movie, so that doesn't make any sense. I think it was like an innate ability that she just figured out she had. Kind of like the magical invisibility thing. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking too, is like, there are things they could use to explain it.
Right.
And they can make that scene great. They could have made that scene super great when she's just like at one with her powers and she figures it out. She renounces her wish. She's very devastated about, the cost of it. But they could have, what they're trying to go for is that emotional, like, this is how I'm one with Steve. This is how when I'm flying, I know that I'm with Steve. Right. And I get it. It's a beautiful thought, and they could have pulled it off. They just, I don't know. They just didn't go for it. They didn't try to solidify that feeling at all. And then 2 seconds later, she's lassoing onto a lightning bolt and she's flying that around. And I'm just like, you don't need that. That's cool, but you don't need to do that. You know how to fly. Like that can't be a better process than just flying naturally. Because flying naturally, you have full control. Now you're tethered to this lightning bolt. It looks cool for the trailers, but what are you doing? That was
interesting.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
And I get why she can do it. Daughter of Zeus, lightning's not going to affect her. So I get it. That's fine. Who it does affect is Cheetah, but it only affects her after she's jumping around on electrical wires and using them as weapons forever. And then she falls into the water and gets, a wire falls into the water, and I guess now electricity affects her and she gets shocked. It's just all these inconsistencies that just like, they needed more scripts. They just needed Jeff Johns, they needed to take it back to Jeff Johns and be like, you're taking a lot of ideas from things. That's fine. That's okay. Can you make it Wonder Woman? Can you bring it back to the heart of what she is, to the power that she brings, to the the emotional connection she has with people, which they do deliver upon in the most cheesy, sentimental way. I guess arrived at where we should talk about Maxwell Lord.
Well, yes, we should, but I do want to talk about, since you brought it up, that you did bring up the cheetah fight scene, so maybe we should talk about that a little bit.
Okay, you're right. I did bring that up.
So going back to strictly the electricity part first, when she's swinging on those electrical cables that she has broken, she is technically not completing the circuit. So at that point, I was not too upset about it, but I was like, okay, somebody's gonna get shocked, and then she did. Yeah. So for me, it was kind of a fulfilled thing. But when she sliced the live wires, that should have electrocuted her.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like that whole fight scene. It's all CGI'd. It's all grayscaled. Like it's all in blue. We're going back to the Snyderverse Justice League lighting, which I hate. I'm sorry. I know that the DCEU, I know there are fans of Snyderverse out there.
Right.
I do not like Zack Snyder's films. Like there are some good qualities to them, but they are so bleak and emotionless That it's like, this is not how you're going to build a DC cinematic universe. You know, that's the beauty of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is there's a lot of heart and emotion there. They've built all of these characters up for a whole decade.
Right.
You're not going to do that. You're not going to force that with DC's Snyderverse. There's no connection to these characters. There's no solidified universe feeling. You know, where this fits in the whole universe, I really just don't know and don't care. And I know it comes after Wonder Woman, but other than that, I don't care how it affected the universe.
Right. I think it worked in one movie really well, and that was The Watchmen. And,
yeah.
But those characters are so fucking bleak.
Well,
you know,
that's
and they
the
could have
world.
worked for Batman, but like Batman has a lot of emotion still, and you're right.
Batman is only that dark or good that dark when he's lost.
Right.
When he's no longer tethered to to the Bat family, to his sidekicks, when he's lost all of his friends, if he's lost his fortune, then that kind of bleak Gotham makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Right.
But otherwise, he is a bleak character in a lively world.
Right.
That he's trying to preserve. You know, it's like there's still that connection to all those. You know, you can still do goth in Batman. It works perfectly. You know, Tim Burton did a goth world amazingly for Batman. But at the same time, there's a lively emotional characters in Tim Burton's world. You know, there's quirks, there's personalities.
Right.
Snyderverse is lacking all of that. You know, it's just there's so much just negative, just depression over the whole DCEU, and they just need to stop. I do love the cast. That's the problem. Is I don't know how that they can reboot the world. I don't know. There's so many ties that you have to sever that are just impossible, I feel like, and that fight scene calls all of that back.
And you know, they could do something when they finally get this Flash movie out, where things get rebooted and they can just redo it, same cast.
Yeah. Or make small changes to the cast, like, you know, Ben Affleck's done, so you can bring in Robert Pattinson. Even though I like Ezra Miller, I don't, you know, not my favorite Flash, but he hasn't gotten a movie yet. I'll give him a chance.
I do like Ezra Miller in general. Like like you said, I don't know how I feel about him being Flash.
But Henry Cavill, Jason Momoa, Ray Fisher, I don't know if he would return given the controversy going on over Justice League movie right now. I guess Joss Whedon was abusive on set.
Oh, jeez.
He got rid of a lot of black character roles, scaled down a lot of their characters. Like, you know, I guess Cyborg was supposed to be a lot more involved in the plot.
The way that, you know, I mean, he is the one who has the new Genesis technology. I was expecting him to be a bigger role.
Yeah, so I guess Joss Whedon's to blame for a lot of those characters being scaled back, and that's just wrong. Yeah, it makes me really sad because I like Joss Whedon until Avengers 2, and then after Avengers 2, I just feel like he's just gone downhill.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess someday we'll talk about that more in depth, maybe.
Yeah, but back to 84. We're gonna go into Maxwell Lord. I think that's the last thing I need to bitch about. Obviously, I'll have to look over my notes again. But Maxwell Lord, oil baron. He's got so many different drills all over the United States. All of them are empty. You know, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
You know, he's a failed man. He's a con man. He's bringing in business clients who realize that he's just stringing them along, that he's unwilling to just announce that he is a failure.
Right.
You know, his whole life, that's his big problem is, you know, that's his number one flaw is he's a huge failure. And he finally gets his hands on the Wish Stone, whatever it was called. I can't remember. We're just going to call it the Wish Stone.
I think it was Dreamstone.
Dreamstone, just as unoriginal.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably comes from the comics, so that's not to blame these guys. Anyways, Dreamstone. He gets his hands on the Dreamstone, and he makes the dumbest thing, you know, dumbest possible wish ever, which is, I wish to be the Dreamstone. He wishes for that power to grant all wishes. And that's the biggest mistake I think this movie had to offer. Was he has what this whole movie is going to base this character on, what it's going to all pivot on is his ability as a father, because he has a son. I don't remember his son's name.
Alistair,
thank you. His son Alistair is, for whatever reason, with Maxwell Lord throughout this whole movie, even though he applies that he only has one weekend ever with his son a year. But for this movie, which does not take place over just one weekend, he's with his kid, or, you know, this kid's stuck with him forever. And he doesn't show any interest throughout this whole movie of this kid. When the kid's around, he's like, why don't you go play with them over there? Your father's number one. Look up to me. Make decisions for yourself. He's distancing himself throughout this whole movie. And at the very end, he pivots on that and is like, no, my whole life's about my son. I got to protect my son. Great moment. It could have been really emotionally heartfelt if his wish hadn't been to be the Dreamstone, but had been to, say, give him the power to cure his kid of an illness that his kid had. Let's say his kid has he's close to death, he's got some kind of illness, and let's say Maxwell Lord actually is interested in preserving his kid. He doesn't care about himself, he wants to save his kid. He's trying to get all these business partners in to give him money so that he can fund research to get his kid, cured or whatever, but he gets his hand on a Dreamstone, and he wishes for maybe the ability to find that cure. But in the process of doing that, he needs more power. He needs to get, smarter. He needs to keep gaining more and more. And so that when he renounces his wish, instead of it just being a moment of, it's like, oh, I got to be for my kid, he has to make that desperate moment where, do I want to destroy the world or do I want to lose my kid? Make a much harder choice for him. That would be it'd be a much more impactful decision he would have to make, and it would make the whole movie ring a lot more, because what really happens is he wishes to be the Dreamstone, and then he just needs to keep granting more wishes. He needs all these wishes, and then he finds that the United States has a telecom program that the beams being sent down from the satellite literally touch people.
Yeah, that part was weird.
And since the beams literally touch people, he's able to reach out to everyone across the entire world and make them all make wishes that will come true and give him a shit ton of power. And Wonder Woman gives a speech that makes all 9 billion people across the entire planet, well, I guess at the time it was probably only like 6 billion, all 6 billion people across the entire planet renounce their wish.
Yeah.
Not possible. Not possible.
Yeah, it was definitely trying to amplify Diana's divinity there to some effect. Like, it made her more of a religious figure that she was able to convince all these people to just denounce their desire.
Right. And so now they're going to do the Justice League effect, where there's going to be, deity statues of Wonder Woman. Nobody sees her ever throughout this movie as Wonder Woman. So she's perfectly concealed her identity, which is why it fits with Justice League.
Something I realized when I watched both of these movies this time around, I don't think anyone ever says Wonder Woman.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think they do.
She's wondrous. She is a Wonder Woman. I think there's like news articles that is like Wonder Woman.
Maybe I missed the newsreel. I do get where you're coming from, saying that a story where he would have to choose the world over his son is definitely way more impactful. But I do think that there is a script where this storyline could work and work really well. Because I do think that somewhere deep down, Maxwell's motivation to be as powerful as possible is so that his son will look up to him, because he didn't have that as a kid. His dad was an asshole, and there's this flashback scene where his dad beats him and stuff like that. So I do think that there's a script where that works better and could have been way more impactful. But I have to say, I actually did cry when when Max got down on his knees and was like, I'm a liar, I'm a failure, and in fact I'm kind of a big sucky loser guy, but I'm always gonna love you. And
well delivered from Pedro Pascal.
Definitely. I thought that particular moment was really strong. The setup could have been better.
I agree.
Sure.
I think the reason that moment is strong is because of Pedro Pascal. I don't think that moment impacts because of the story around it. It impacts because of his delivery. That's how I felt about it, because I too was hit by that scene. It was really well done. but I wasn't hit by the scene because of any kind of character moment. You know, there's no repercussions. There's no resounding ending for any of these characters that makes you think that they got any kind of just desserts for any of their actions.
Yeah, Barbara's sentence is way more severe than Pedro Pascal and Maxwell Lord, and he almost broke the world.
Did they even have a sentence? Because I don't remember them resolving their characters at all.
Well, I thought. Oh wait, I guess she wasn't dead at the end, was she?
No,
she does get electrocuted, but then she is okay.
Yeah, she renounces her wish when all 6 billion other people in the world miraculously renounce their wish, and she becomes back to human. And that's the last time you see her. Is she's just stuck on that island. You know, they just leave after that.
Right. I am not 100% certain that Minerva actually renounced her wish, because that apex predator part, that was a gift from Maxwell Lord when he was getting the payments for his wishes.
Yeah. Well, she definitely renounced being like Diana, because they show her when everybody else has renounced their wish, they have like that flash of her like waking up in the water and she's back to being human. So like that's the last shot I remember of her, is just that, seeing her as a human, just being like looking sad that she had like done something wrong or whatever.
See, I thought that scene could be read that she's sad that she lost this power that she had.
Maybe.
But like I don't know that she is completely unlike Diana, because I don't think they ever showed her physically mouth, "I'm done with this." And the part where she got all CGI cat lady, that was all given to her by Lord for free. She did not wish for that.
Yeah. And if that's the route they go, I'm totally down, because I do think she is a good villain. I think if they focus on her, she can make a great part of the League of Doom. And you know, in the comics, you know, they've gone both routes. You know, there's obviously Cheetah is the main villain, but recent comics, Barbara Minerva has been, you know, a friend and an assistant for Wonder Woman, you know, helping her out in issues, not as Cheetah, but just as like a scientist in general. That's cool. So it's like they can go both routes. You know, they showed her without powers, but at the same time, like you said, we don't know that she renounced. Sorry, they didn't show her without powers. They showed her without Cat Lady CGI.
Right.
But they didn't show that she renounced any of her powers. So it's like in the next movie, she could still be a cheetah, which would be great.
I think that'd be cool.
I'm down for it. But who knows what they'll do. But Maxwell Lord, his story ends with him, you know, that emotional scene with his kid, which again, I agree was an emotional scene, but I'm putting that one on actor, not on anything else, because I think taken outside of it, it still rings for a lot of the issues that have happened this year specifically. You know, it'll ring emotionally in those regards. It's a good scene, but the whole scene, I'm sitting there wondering, how the fuck did the kid get to the goddamn lawn of the White House so fast? They showed him locked up in an office building and a bunch of people pouring through it, and then like 2 minutes later, he's just like, "Dad," and he's just in the White House lawn. I'm like, how the fuck are you here?
I don't know. But I am still arguing that a story where this guy is seduced by this wishing power, this seductive lie, as they call the Dreamstone at some point. Yeah. I think that could still have worked, where he decided, oh, in the search for this power for my son's respect, I left my son behind. Yeah. I want to renounce that and make him know that the only thing that's important to me is him. I think that story still very much could work.
Yes, it definitely certainly could have. They just didn't try for any emotional connection.
Yeah. I'm with you. It fell flat a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. If they had tried for the emotional connection, they could have gone that route. I walked away thinking that him renouncing his wish was nothing. Yeah, you know, it didn't ring at all in any way, because there was no repercussions.
He didn't really lose anything because he was already losing.
And that's the thing. I don't know if we've ever established that when you make a wish, you lose something that you want. So it's like when Wonder Woman made her wish to get Steve back, she started to lose her powers. You know, Barbara lost her humanity. Maxwell Lord lost
same effect, I would guess, when he became
humanity.
a stone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's also, every time he grants a wish, which I guess was part of his wish, he falls apart, like, on a physical level.
Yeah, but as they also show, whenever he steals other people's wishes, he can just take their health.
He can take their health too,
which is
he
just
can
ridiculous.
choose what to take from them.
That scene was stupid too, and he's just like, he's reached out to everybody, and it's just Pedro Pascal just yelling at nothing, and he's just like, and I take your liver, and I take your hair, and I take your spine, and I was just like, this is stupid. Like, come on, this is your big bad villain ending, like. It's not on the Wonder Woman level at all.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, obviously she saves the world because, like I said just a little bit earlier, Lord almost breaks the world.
Oh, that reminds me. She saves the world, but I don't think anybody loses their memories. So you're telling me that everybody in the Justice League world, every 6 billion person who was alive back in 1984. Remembers all of that shit going down and doesn't say anything about it? They're just like, yeah, that shit happened, you know? That's our life.
Some crazy shit. I don't know who that God lady voice was, but that was some good TV.
Right. My gosh. And that brings me back to another thing I had just forgotten that I wanted to talk about. When she brings Steve Trevor back, she brings him back in the body of a Hallmark actor. I feel bad for this guy. Like, he's just stuck in Hallmark movies. Like, I've heard this about after the fact. I didn't know anything about him until I've researched this movie afterwards. And, there's a lot of poor this guy because he's just a Hallmark actor who gets replaced by Chris Pine in 2 seconds because she wishes to have Steve Trevor back. And instead of just giving him a new body, he gets stuck in the body of this guy.
Yeah, played by Christopher Polaha. I don't know if I'm pronouncing.
Probably not. I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, but there's this, like, they break the, I can't remember the 180 line.
The 180 degree rule.
Yeah, they break that to transition from that actor to Chris Pine, and to show you that Diana sees only Steve Trevor. She doesn't see this guy that he's actually in the body of.
Right.
And it's fine. I'm not going to complain. I do like, Chris Pine. I don't mind seeing him act. I just don't know why they just didn't have him come back in his own body. Because later on, world leaders wish for nukes, and nukes just miraculously appear. They don't come in the body of, some other rocket. They come up as brand new nukes. So new things can be created from wishes. So why didn't they just give him a new body?
I don't know.
It's just a silly story idea that they could have cut out in the next draft.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I don't know. Like, I think the main reason why that could have worked as a story element, you're right. It kind of gets, it's just another inconsistency, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But that could have worked if, the reason why that could have worked, rather, is that gives Diana another reason why she shouldn't let this continue, because she's literally taking this person's life away from them.
Yeah. And if they had played up to that would have been great. But she spends the entire movie ignoring that fact, and she only renounces
that fact.
Yeah, exactly. And she only renounces the wish when she finds out that the entire world's going to basically be destroyed. She doesn't care at all about this guy who's losing his life. But the funny thing about that is later on at the end of the movie, she sees that guy when Steve Trevor is not possessing him. Yeah. And they had this nice little kind of interacting moment where, they talk about, I think it's, it's just like, wow, crazy world, right? Haha. Anyways, I'm going to go get a coffee. And the only thing I could think of throughout that entire scene is that Diana is looking at him going, I've seen your penis, man. Like, she's like, I've seen this guy naked. I've had sex with him. He'll never know that he had sex with Wonder Woman. But she's just like, oh, this poor guy and his wasted memories. Like,
I really thought it was like, I did kind of think the fact that he was wearing that outfit that she tried to pick out for Steve, that was kind of funny. But
oh my god, you just made me remember something else.
Yeah, go ahead, because I mean, I didn't think that was really a necessary thing. I just thought it was funny. Go ahead.
It is funny, and what's funny about that is, again, this is supposed to be a period movie, 1984. You know, it tries to deliver on that atmosphere. It does not handle nostalgia at all. You know, it shows people in silly outfits. It plays a little bit of soundtrack from the 1980s, but it doesn't deliver on that, you know, the 80s nostalgia, like, you know, Stranger Things. It doesn't connect well. And they have one of those, you know, famous in the 80s and 90s, those dress up scenes where, you know, a character goes into a fitting room and comes out with a new silly outfit, and everybody's just like, oh, you know, how they all react. It's so funny. And they try to do that in this movie for Steve Trevor, and it falls flat. It's so deadpan, so boring. There's no silly like action scene or soundtrack to back it up. You know, the counter reactions of Diana don't really match the outfits he's wearing at all, honestly.
I honestly didn't mind that scene. In fact, I got a couple good chuckles out of it, particularly like, let's keep the shoes. Okay, yeah, let's keep the shoes. Yeah, let's keep the shoes.
Yeah. Like it had some funny moments, but I just felt like every single choice in that scene, I was just like, I know what you're trying to do, but the Mighty Ducks movies did it better. You know, it's just like it's like, I know what you're trying to do, but this TV film was much better at it from that time period. And I don't know. It's just a lot of this stuff kind of just fell apart. Let me look over my notes, but I think I'm good to tear the wall down and do closing statements.
All right. Me too.
Yep. I'm good to tear that wall down.
All right. Brick by brick, that wall's down.
Let's do some closing statements.
Yeah. You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, closing statements. So I think it's obvious I was not a fan of this movie. I still give it 2.5 stars, which I know is going to sound surprising for everybody that stuck with me through all of the spoilers. You're going to hear 2.5 out of 4, and you're like, I could have sworn this was going to get a 1.5. It is still an entertaining film.
Yeah.
As much as I hated it, as much as I had so many nitpicks and everything, I still enjoyed myself. You know, that it was still 2.5 hours on my rocking chair that I just didn't mind. I did occasionally go to my cell phone, but for the most part, I was engaged. I watched. I had so many issues, but it's not the worst DCEU film I've seen. And I still think people can enjoy it, and it makes me happy that people can enjoy it. Because that's what a superhero film is for. It's supposed to be silly entertainment. It can be done so much better, but it is just silly entertainment to just gobble up. Inconsistent writing, not as good of directing as I would have liked from Patty Jenkins. The CGI action scenes felt horrible. You know, it could have used a lot more rescripts and everything. It fell flat, but it's still a competent falling flat, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think that this movie, just kind of go off of what you were saying, that the reason why it does not work is because it's following a very competent film that is pretty powerful for a lot of different reasons. Even just for like, I know that some people complain about her pining after the pine, but I don't really see that when I watch that movie. I see this extremely strong character who's not going to let the society constraints on women bring her down. Like, she's going to be a warrior because that's what she is. And I for that, like, Wonder Woman should go in some kind of Hall of Fame or something. And this movie just is not up to that standard. That being said, I really enjoyed watching the movie, really. I did. I just can recognize that it is not as good of a movie as the first one, which, I mean, it's a sequel. Yeah. That happens. So it's a full-face movie for me, for sure. But yeah, I agree. It's not. If it was as good or better as Wonder Woman, it might have gotten a face and a half, because Wonder Woman's a fantastic movie.
I will also say that since this is a stay or go, I mean, we'll answer that question. We'll answer that question overall at the end. Right. But here with Wonder Woman, since Wonder Woman in and of itself is a stay or go, absolutely do not go to the theater to see this movie. It's not worth you risking your life or the lives of others around you.
definitely.
Not that any movie is, but this movie is specifically is underwhelming and a disappointment in regards to what could potentially happen.
Right. If you're already paying money for HBO, just watch it with that money that you already spent.
Or if you have a friend with HBO, just butter them up and, buy them a bunch of donuts or something and hope they'll let you watch the movie off their HBO.
Butter them up and eat them like a tasty roll.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we good to move on to Soul then?
Yeah, let's move on to Pixar's Soul. You want to dive in? Wait, no, you summarize Wonder Woman. I will summarize Soul. Directed by Pete Docter, who's done other Pixar films like Inside Out, Monsters Inc., Up. Great movies, all of them.
All of them. Including this one, I'd say.
Yeah, he also wrote this with Mike Jones and Kent Powers. I don't know their filmographies. But it stars Jimmy Fox as a music teacher whose name I forgot to write down.
Joe.
Wow, how did I forget Joe?
I don't know. I don't remember Joe's last name.
That's all right. He plays music teacher Joe, who is feeling, run down in life. He's kind of stalled. He's very passionate about jazz, but he hasn't ever gotten, the opportunity to be a jazz, musician, to be on the big screen, to please audiences, that kind of thing. And he finally gets that opportunity early in the film through just random happenstance. He gets to, play with this huge jazz singer, and he's really excited. He's over the moon. And then he dies. And his soul goes to the after, or the great beyond, is what they call it. Or on the path to the great beyond, which is a nice visual effect. I like the animation in this film, and that was very daunting. The animation of the great beyond, it's a glass incline just leading up to a bright light, and just it's all in space. Stars all around, just nothingness everywhere, and there's just giant white light that's just eating everything.
yeah And like most of the people on the tram going up to it are like, yep, I'm ready for this. And he's like, fuck no.
He's freaking out. As one of the first souls on the incline that he meets is like, I'm an 80-year-old woman, I'm ready for this, get out of my way, here I come. And she's like, you must not have been ready for death. And he's like, no, I'm not, I gotta perform. He's like, I gotta get back because my dream was about to be realized. I was about to be able to play piano. And so that becomes his goal. He's got to get back through random circumstances that I won't spoil. He comes to the Great Before. I can't remember what they call it. The U Seminar.
The youth center or something like that.
U Seminar. I remember it was called the U Seminar. I just don't remember what it was called prior to them rebranding it as the U Seminar. But he comes here and gets mistaken as a tutor for new souls. And this place determines a person's personality. It builds the character, and it sends those souls down to earth to start a new life. And Joe's purpose becomes specifically getting home, getting back to his own body. And that's the story, really. Well, I guess I should also mention, as a mentor, he's put in charge of a lost soul, somebody that they haven't been able to make earth ready yet. She's had so many mentors like Abe Lincoln and Gandhi and like all these famous, like Mother Teresa, all these famous so-called benevolent souls. Mother Teresa, don't get me started, I won't. But she's had all these big mentors. They've all failed. But can Joe make her earth ready? Well, he's not honestly interested in doing that. He's interested only in getting back to his body. But if that's what he has to do to get back to his body, then sure.
Yeah.
And that's the story. I don't know if I mentioned Joe is voiced by Jamie Foxx, and 22, who is the lost soul that he is put in charge of, is voiced by Tina Fey. And the whole tale is just their, how they interact with each other to accomplish their own personal goals. Tina Fey's 22 doesn't want to go to Earth. She doesn't want to become somebody. There's no spark for her. There's no tethering
Right.
joy or love. She doesn't get it. She doesn't understand the Earth experience because it's all, from a cynic's point of view, it's, it's all gross. You can work so hard to achieve something, but at the same time you go through so much turmoil and depression and despair. Is it worth it?
Like there's no physical pain in the youth seminar or whatever. Do you think that's about it, or
I think that's about it for the synopsis. That's I think decent enough without spoiling things, because I don't think we need to put up a spoiler wall for this one, because I highly recommend this film.
Right.
And there's a lot of good, Pixar's really good at making a story that pulls a lot of different things out of left field. It's hard to predict where a Pixar story is usually going, because they're always trying to keep you on your toes. They're trying to pull an emotional story out, but at the same time they're trying to entertain you.
Right.
In that aspect, I think Soul kind of fails. It's fairly reminiscent of a lot of other films before it.
So you mean like just the plot, like where the plot ends up?
Yeah, just like the whole unraveling of the story feels very similar to a lot of other films, and it's kind of predictable.
That's fair.
But it doesn't hurt it.
No.
Because the emotion between all these characters, what's driving them all, is still unique.
It's very well executed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Tina Fey and Jamie Foxx work really well together. And
yeah, they're just adorable.
I actually, right before we did this, watched a little tiny interview with the two of them separately talking about working with each other. And Jamie Foxx said he was really excited to work with her because he always wanted to pitch to her the idea of her and Amy Poehler doing Laverne and Shirley, like a movie version of Laverne and Shirley. And I'm like, wow, that's really funny. That I wouldn't think that would be on Jamie Foxx's mind, but that would work. That would work.
I'd watch it.
But yeah, they enjoyed working with each other, which is good, and it shows, I think.
It definitely does. Yeah, they have good chemistry, and everybody does a great voice performance in this film. And again, I've already talked that I love the animation. I thought it looked good. Very similar to Inside Out. I feel like you can easily kind of forget this movie, like clump those two together, like give it 10 years and you might get aspects of this movie mixed up with Inside Out, because they have fairly similar look and themes in regards to emotions in Inside Out versus your soul in this one. Like
there's a lot of existentialism and a lot of Pixar movies, really. There's a lot of questioning of self and life in general.
Up. Jesus.
Up, yeah, geez, yeah. And but all at the end, always the message is that it is worth the pain to live, which I really appreciate from Pixar, because we all need that sometimes.
And I think this movie, even though again it's a rehashed idea, this movie still makes it feel fresh.
Oh, yeah.
I cried. I cried at the end when this stuff goes down. I won't say what, but I do feel like right at the end there's a kind of a flip-floppy decision that's kind of like a heartwarming, like, yay, the happy endings for everyone, that I didn't really like. It kind of just felt kind of...
Yeah, I remember what you're saying. Yeah, because, there was so much gravity behind the idea. It's kind of hard to talk about without giving away. There's a lot of gravity behind the idea of him giving in for 22, and then they kind of just, they kind of flip that. Yeah. They undo that.
It definitely...
I could see that being like a producer decision. Like they read the script and they're like, I don't like that.
Yeah, I feel like they probably it could have also, again, I think this was another movie that was pushed back. It might not have been, but I feel like it was. And I feel like that might have been like a producer thing, like, wow, we got the time. This is very depressing, and this year's already very depressing.
That
so why don't you cheer up that ending a little bit?
And I didn't mind the ending. It just it could have had a lot more weight to it if it ended the way I thought it was going to.
Yeah, what I did mind, and all I will go into it is these two words. So if you don't want any spoilers for Soul, skip forward 5 seconds. What I did mind was the Freaky Friday situation. That
with him in the
yeah.
in Cat.
Yeah, it was funny what they did. It was funny how they pulled it off. Continuing on with the story like that for the next 30 minutes was amusing because, again, wasn't really expecting it to take that route, so it's kind of fun to follow it.
Yeah.
But there's this emotional scene with the character and his mom, and they try to pull it off in a way that's not going to be annoying to watch.
Right.
And I appreciate that because it would have been annoying to watch how they set up the scene if they were to continue doing it like that. I'm trying not to spoil anything, so I know it's vague and I know it's confusing, and I'm sorry, listeners. But doing that makes you wonder after the fact why the fuck the mom wasn't irritated by, I will say, a cat meowing constantly throughout this entire conversation.
Yeah.
I would have been like, can you shut that fucking animal up and get it out of here? We're trying to have this heartfelt moment, and this thing is just meowing nonstop. So I get why they try to make it easy to watch, right. But in doing so, it begs the question of how annoying that conversation really was for those characters.
Right. Like, did 22 take over, or did some kind of weird ghost thing happen where Joe took? Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to talk about without spoiling it.
Yeah.
We might have already by just implying.
No, I think if anything, I've just confused everybody.
Yeah, something like that.
And I'm sorry.
All in all, it is.
There's an emotional,
good,
heartfelt moment. Yeah, there's an emotional, heartfelt moment that falls flat because of the implications of how they show it.
Right. Sure.
How it's brought about on the screen. Just makes a very beautiful moment very silly.
Yeah. You called it the Freaky Friday effect, which, I mean, that's fair. That's what goes on. But I think that was kind of worked because it showed Joe what he was doing wrong in his life, which for that reason it worked. I thought it could work better. I guess go forward 5 seconds again. I thought it could work better if they were both in the body.
That's what I was thinking was going to happen.
I thought that was going to happen.
And I thought that would have been very interesting. But I do like the route they went because, as you said, it definitely does help him realize as a person that he's not living the life he wants to live if that's his dream.
Right.
If his dream is jazz, then he's not living the life right. And that's a lot of. There's just so many good emotional moments with him and Tina Fey's character 22 that just bring across so much better in this film than, say, in Wonder Woman, where a lot of the emotional decisions kind of just fall flat. Here, when she is, I will say, in charge, when she has a little spell on Earth, when she's running around and actually learning what life is like, as she says, she's good at jazzing. And she doesn't mean she's good at being a jazz musician. She's just good at jazzing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what jazz is about, is like, loving the life, loving what's around you, like, letting yourself fall into the moment. But like that's what I liked, is that those emotional moments where she's learning what makes life important.
Right.
It's like, God, I just don't know how to talk about without spoiling anything of this film. It's just beautiful how they show her development as a character,
right,
while Joe is developing without realizing it. Joe is so focused on his one goal that he's not aware how much he is changing throughout this film.
Right.
And it's great. How they handle it all. I really like it.
So I do want to recognize some of the cast, because I thought that there was some really good decisions in the casting. Particularly, I really like Rachel House as this accounting spirit character named Terry. And she is so funny. And if you haven't seen Rachel House in something, go find The Hunt for the Wilder People. The Hunt for the Wilder People, I think is what it's called. The Taika Waititi film. And she plays this social worker and is so funny. And I was just happy to find her in this. And another funny role, not nearly as funny haha as that her other role, but she
That's
just
Terry.
does a great job.
I also with Terry, there's the Jerrys.
Yes,
And
all the rest of the spirits' names are Jerry's. I'm not sure
yeah,
why.
just to segregate poor Terry.
Yeah,
But one of the Jerrys is Richard Ayoade,
yeah,
who I didn't know was in this film. And once I heard his voice, I was just like, "Yay! I love him!" Like, yeah, it made me fall in love even more with this movie because I was just like, "Yes, Richard Ayoade's in it." Like, small role but great.
The other Jerrys were played by Alice Braga and Wes Studi. I'm sure there might have been some other voices for the Jerrys because there's quite a few of them. They all kind of played off of each other really well, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
You also have Questlove playing Curly, which that's how Joe got into the band because Curly was his student at one point, and he works with Dorothea Williams, played by Angela Bassett, and like,
ooh, yeah,
really everybody just did such a great job voice acting. I
love
I didn't
Angela
have
Bassett,
a problem
too.
with anybody's performance.
So it was another fun because I didn't recognize her voice, so I had to look that one up. And seeing that it was her, I was just like, "Yep, that's good." You know, she was doing a good job.
She did a good job. Everybody, really, just the whole cast.
Yeah, there's also Daveed Diggs.
Yeah, which I don't remember
Hamilton.
who Paul was, but I love
I
Daveed Diggs.
can't.
So
yeah, I do too. I'm trying to remember which character he was, but sadly, I do not.
Pretty low on the cast list, so it must have been a pretty minor role. But I want to see him in some more major roles. He's a very talented person.
Yeah, and as a film that revolves around jazz and music, I think it's important to point out that the music is done by Trent Reznor and Atticus. Oh man, I'm always gonna forget his last name. Oh well, it's the same guys who did Mank and a lot of other David Fincher films. Music's composed by John Baptiste, who I'm a Stephen Colbert lover. I love The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And John Baptiste is the musician, the Staying Human band on there. Mm-hmm. Amazing person, amazing musician. So a lot of the jazz compositions in this are, very beautiful, and it's nice knowing that John Baptiste had a hand in it.
Yeah,
I like seeing. I'm excited to see his music go further than I don't want him to leave The Late Show, but at the same time, yeah,
I would like that too.
Because they do a good job at showcasing him and his band, but I want to see them get the recognition they deserve beyond that too, because they're amazing.
Not everybody watches late night talk shows, especially not anymore. So it's exposure. I would like to see them go more mainstream, which I guess that's technically mainstream. It's just not as the high end of mainstream as it used to be.
Yeah. I think the only other thing I would want to talk about is the structure of the soul worlds. I don't know what to call them, but like the U Seminar and the Great Beyond,
and the what do they call it? The zone.
The zone, yeah, that's right. That's specifically what I wanted to talk about was the zone. They don't really do a great job at explaining how any of this functions with the real world.
Right.
It's child animation, it's like we don't have to explain it, so I'm not going to complain too much that the physics of this world aren't really established. But the zone was where I was really thrown off with the story, because souls go into the zone when you just get lost, when you're if you're a lost soul, you don't know what you're doing, you can wander around in the zone forever. But also if like you're a musician or a writer or something and you're really in it, you're in the zone, your soul is inhabiting this area. It's floating around. It's, it's enjoying itself. And I liked it. It's a really cool concept, especially Moonwind. I thought Moonwind was hilarious.
I did. Moonwind was really funny, played by Graham Norton.
Yeah, was it really? I didn't even notice that. I love Graham Norton. He's great, but he's where I get confused with the story. Because his soul can go from being in the zone where Jamie Foxx's Joe's soul is at that at the moment, to being sucked right back in Earth and remembering everything. He remembers the structure of all the soul worlds and everything. And I know that there are crazy people out there who will lather on about that, and we as normal humans see them as crazy. But he doesn't seem like a crazy person in the real. He just seems like a cool, suave dude. And it's just like, is this movie saying that there's just like senseis out there who just know this stuff exists? Like,
I think that's what it's saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
That's
did they
fine
call
if it
him
is,
though?
but
It wasn't a guru. It wasn't. They didn't call him a shaman either. They called him something, a mystic. I think, yeah. I think he and his group were called the Mystics. And, and they were just all people who knew how to get into the zone and help lost souls find their way. I fucking thought it was hilarious.
I loved the concept. It confused me. When I was watching the movie, I was just like, because certain plot points depend on characters going into the zone and finding things, and I'm just like, I don't know. Watching it, I was just like, man, this is weird. Like, I'm just struggling with the concept of how all of this coexists, but it doesn't hurt the movie at all.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think it hurts the movie, and like you said earlier, it's a kids animation about some pretty heavy topics, really. So I feel like if they went really deep into it, it might be either really more confusing for children or less entertaining at least. But I would like to see like the Adventures of Moonwind.
Right? I'd definitely watch that. Yeah, I loved Moonwind and his whole ship, and I just remembered that how his story ends. We won't spoil that, but I just remembered it.
I can't quite remember, so yeah, maybe tell me after we're done. All right. I wish that we had spent a little bit more time on Soul, but I really don't know what else to say unless we went into a spoiler wall, and I don't feel like that's necessary, really. I think it's kind of evident that we both liked it.
Yeah. Someday in the future, maybe if we do like a Pixar playlist and we revisit Soul, we can delve much further into the movie. But 2 weeks after its release date, it's gonna be on Disney Prime or Disney Plus forever. I don't know why I keep saying Disney Prime.
I don't know.
It's gonna be on Disney Plus for a long time. So like you can always catch it. You don't have to rush like Wonder Woman to catch it.
Right. So I guess I'll do a closing statement if you're good for that.
I'm ready,
full-faced movie. I think just really I can't recommend this movie enough. I feel like like you said, there are some depressing moments, and it's been a depressing year, but all in all, the end of it is very uplifting. The message in general, uplifting, and I think we could use that this year. So I recommend you guys, stream this movie for sure.
Agreed. I give it 3.5 stars. Nice. Again, no movie of 2020 got 4 stars, which makes me sad. But for this film, it didn't get that extra half star because it is just a rehash of old ideas. Which again, I get there aren't any actual new story ideas out there, but even though this film delivers a lot of emotion and it's very uplifting, it was still very predictable. Again, there's so many moments where I was surprised by what happened, but how they used it turned out to be predictable. And there's small nitpicky disappointments that don't ruin the film, that are just me being a little complainy, whiny little man. But overall, I do highly recommend it. I do want to put out content trigger warning for 2020 specifically. If you've lost somebody this year, this movie might be a little hard to watch,
right?
Solely based off of its premise, but the message is strong. And again, I do agree. I think we need something like this year, so I do recommend it. Should you stay or should you stay go? Should you watch Pixar's Soul or should you watch Wonder Woman's 84 again? No reason to go to the theater. So the real question comes down to, if you've got the time and you can stay home, do we recommend both films? Do we recommend one film? What do we think?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so since you put on the table both films, I would actually recommend people watch both these films. But if I had to choose one over the other, if it came down to my last $14, and I could either buy into HBO or Disney Prime, I I did it. I did Disney Prime. Disney Plus. I would say go for Soul. Soul was a better constructed movie, I'd say. So if I have to give a winner to one of them, it would be this one. But I did enjoy watching both these movies. And if you need more Wonder Woman in your life, which everyone does, then you should watch 1984. Just know that it's not as good as the first movie.
Oh yeah, I agree with the Soul. Soul wins if given the option of either or. But I personally do not recommend watching Wonder Woman 84. I recommend watching the first Wonder Woman. And while I respect your statement, and I'm not at all negating what you have said, I do not think that film is worthy of Wonder Woman's character. I think it's kind of underwhelming and a huge disappointment to what they established in the first movie.
Yeah.
And I think the first movie just rings more solid without this one having been there. So I don't recommend 84 unless you're a huge DC fan, or as you said, if you really just need more Wonder Woman, which I agree, everybody needs more Wonder Woman. I feel like what they put forth wasn't Wonder Woman.
I feel that. Let me ask you this though: if they did not come out with that first movie, if that first movie did not exist, which I know that's kind of hard to imagine because it is a big deal, what would your opinion about this movie change?
Only in the fact that I would be more adamant that they need to stop the universe.
That's fair.
If they didn't have the strengths of the first Wonder Woman movie, then this would have been clear signs that the universe is in shatters and just needs to be erased. But with that first Wonder Woman movie established, and with the fun of Aquaman, which my opinion on Aquaman is it is a fun schlock movie. And that is how I feel about Wonder Woman 84. It is a fun schlock movie. It's trash. It smells bad. It looks bad. But at the same time, I did have fun watching it. For me, the DCEU has only put forth really Wonder Woman and Shazam. Like, I enjoyed Shazam. There's a lot of heart and family emotion in Shazam that I really appreciated. Is it a great film? No, not really. It's just a fun film. That's all it wanted to be, was a fun film.
Yeah, that I feel like
that's great.
A kid superhero, that's all you need is a fun film.
Yeah, and Zachary Levi does a great job as Shazam. And with Wonder Woman, the first one, as we've said, very powerful film, very emotionally resounding.
Yeah.
Very worthy of of Wonder Woman. And this sequel just felt like we don't really have a good idea of what to do for Wonder Woman since we've already established this universe up through 2020. It's like, well, how do we fit her in with this world and still tell a cool story? Let's just do another fish out of water sequence. Oh, and let's just have her lose her powers like what's happened in Superman 2 and Spider-Man 2. Yeah. And let's make it based on wishes, like Aladdin, and let's it's like careful what you wish for.
I will say that I have seen wish stories go a lot worse. I know I said that last when we talked about it outside of this. I like that can definitely become really stupid, really fast. But like you said when I brought that up, is that there's definitely been films that done it better.
Like careful what you wish for is a big theme in so many movies.
Right.
And agreed, there have been movies that have fallen far flatter than Wonder Woman 84 in that regard. But, there's also movies that, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is like Aladdin, where it's like he has 3 wishes and it shows the repercussions of those wishes.
Right.
And then when Jafar has his wishes, it shows the repercussions of his wishes. And every wish you have to be careful. There's an episode of Charmed where there's a genie, and it's like they have to be very careful what their wishes are, because just like in Wonder Woman 84, your wish comes across like you get what you want, but there's a huge negative effect. Yeah. And so that's the theme of this film, and it kind of falls in the middle of how it handles it. It's a well beaten theme, and this doesn't really add anything new, but it doesn't completely bungle it. So
Gotcha. So go and watch the vocal talents of Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey in Soul. Because they really did do a great job together, I think.
yeah.
And I did enjoy it and made me feel good at the end.
I'm thankful you all have listened to me bitch and moan from what I'm sure most of you out there will find to be just an entertaining film. But hopefully I was entertaining in my bitching. So
I will say that I think your points were all valid. So but I was entertained by the film.
Well, I am the Green Traveler from Gorsh with an X.
And I'm the Faceless Leone, a man blob. Safe travels. And good night. Do you thirst for adventure? Do you search for laughter and friendship?
Ha 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 ha!
Then don't miss the adventures in Valagorn! Welcome to a new world of fantasy, fun, and action! Coming to you as a monthly serial starting on January 19th of 2021. And brought to you by the imaginative people of FictionWorks 19. Starring Greg Callahan as Raphael Anastas Magoo, Sarah Christ as Vashti Whisperwind, and Kenneth Glynn as Pai Sho Wukong. We'll see you in Valagorn. The Adventures in Valagorn. Hey there, couch potatoes. This is the Faceless Leone here. Tell you about our new addition to the show. We will be bringing to you 2 episodes a week, starting on Monday the 4th of January, 2021. I'll tell you, thank you for letting that year be over. We're going to bring in the new year nice and strong, 2 episodes a week. Do our regular thing Thursday, nothing's changing there, but on Mondays, we are now going to be bringing to you playlists. We're going to start off with watching the Disney movies, the OG Disney movies from chronological order. We'll break it up there with some other things. Who knows what we might do. But we're looking at some long series of movies. Anyways, we hope that you, the listener, the potatoes at home, enjoy it. Safe travels. Green and Faceless on the Couch is a proud production of FictionWorks 19. If you liked the show, please leave a review, like, follow, or subscribe wherever you listen. This will help us grow our show. Be sure to visit us at facebook.com/greenandfaceless. There you'll find many links to our show and to our website. Thank you all very much for listening.